that we've already basically accommodated.
For his 87-year-old handicap
Very good
mom.
point.
And then, and also have this for, so anyway. The building is possible.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the April 4, 2023 meeting of the Foxborough Zoning Board of Appeals. This meeting and the public hearing that we will be conducting is being recorded by Foxboro Cable Access. The time being 4:30 p.m., we have the continued public hearing. Walnut Master Ground Lessee LLC requests a comprehensive permit pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 40B, to construct 200 units of rental housing for seniors, all 200 units of which will be affordable at no more than 80% of area median income. Property situated on Walnut Street, assesses map 133, parcel 023, in the R40 Residential and Agricultural District. We have here in Town Hall Lorraine Brew, Kim Mellon, Kurt Yegian, and me. Dave Brown may be watching us, but I don't believe he'll be able to participate. So Lorraine, as was the case in the first meeting we had, will be the voting member along with Kim and me. Paige Duncan, Scott Shippey are here. I think Sam and Dave, if anybody remembers Sam and Dave, you win a prize. But I think Sam and Dave from TEC are with us. Am I correct?
I'm here.
Okay, somebody's here. Good, thank you. So since our last meeting, the following has occurred. The last meeting, again, was on March 16th. We had the site walk on March 23rd, and on March 29th, we had a working session to discuss the list of requested waivers. We also have received the following additional materials. Walnut Street Affordable Housing presentation, which is dated March 9, 2023. Walnut Street Site Section Plan, dated March 9, 2023. Revised Traffic Impact Assessment from Weston and Sampson, dated March 10, 2023. North High Street Views Exhibit, and that's undated, but it was received on March 17, 2023. Revised Utility and Stormwater Report from Weston and Sampson, dated March 24, 2023. A letter dated March 24, 2023, from Weston and Sampson responding to comments from TEC Inc. concerning the initial Walnut Street Affordable Housing Comprehensive Permit Set. A revised Walnut Street Affordable Housing Comprehensive Permit Set, which was received on March 28, 2023. Letter dated April 3, 2023, from 9 residents of North High Street. A letter dated April 3, 2023, from Walnut Master Ground Lessee LLC in response to public comments concerning parking at the proposed project site. A letter dated April 3, 2023, from TEC Inc., responding to Weston and Sampson's responses to comments from TEC concerning the initial comprehensive permit set, and a revised list of requested waivers, which was received on April 4, 2023. Diana, do I have them all?
Yep.
Okay, do I have a motion to waive the reading and enter each of these items into the record?
So moved.
Second?
Now, I have to do this by roll call. So Lorraine,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
and Barney, yes. Notwithstanding the fact that we've entered into the record the list of requested waivers, that does not mean that they have been approved. We'll discuss them at a later meeting. What I'd like to discuss first is the letter we received from Mr. Matos concerning the parking issues. If you want to summarize it for us.
Sure, thank you. So I wanted to, and I can't remember, unfortunately, it's been a few weeks, who exactly raised the concern or the question regarding parking. And I remember in that discussion, you know, I was thinking about some of the other sites that we own and Peabody manages that are a similar population and similar unit mix in terms of bedroom sizes, et cetera. And I know that we've never had any issues with our parking, so I wanted to go back and take a look and see if we could get some real-world comps that we could provide to the board as part of your assessment and your thoughts around that. As you know, one of the waivers that we're requesting is relief from the parking, which, under the zoning would allow for, I think, to 450 spaces for 200 units, which is well over 2.25 ratio. And so what I wanted to do and compare that to see what in the real world and what we have, and then relative to also what our engineers have sort of planned for in terms of what the Institute for Transportation Engineers calculates as an industry standard based on the type of housing and the number of units. So based on the ITE, the Institute for Transportation Engineers, their calculation for a 200-unit age-restricted development would be in the 122 space range. So that's less than 1 space per unit, would be 0.61 spaces per unit. We've provided 221 spaces, which is over 1-for-1 ratio. And in our experience, again, that 221 spaces would be more than sufficient to accommodate the parking needs of the proposed population as well as visitors and management staff. And I can just run through a few of the properties, again, that we've used as some of the comps. We have Walker School in Taunton. It's 40 units, all 1 bedroom. It's a 1-for-1 parking ratio, and there are 17 registered vehicles there to tenants, so it's a 42.5% utilization. The Fairways in Lakeville, it's 56 units, all 1 bedroom. There's 69 spaces total it's a 1.2 space to unit ratio. There are 50 registered cars there to tenants, so it's a 72.4% utilization. Bedford Green in Bedford, 70 units, all 1 bedroom, 72 spaces, just over 1.02 spaces to a unit ratio, and we have 30 registered vehicles there. So again, 41.6 utilization. We have the Moorings in Squantum Gardens in Quincy, which has 223 units, and that's a mix of 171 bedrooms, 1 bedrooms, and 52 2 bedrooms. So there we have a total of 280 spaces, so it's 1.25 spaces per unit, and we have 105 registered cars to tenants there, so 37.5% utilization. Barstow Village in Hanover, 65 units, all 1 bed. There's 97 spaces there, 1.49 spaces per unit. And we have 66 registered vehicles there to tenants, so 68% utilization. Rogers Hall in Lowell, 61 units, all 1 bedroom. Less than, so here we have 53 spaces, so less than 1 space per unit, so 0.87 spaces. 37 registered vehicles to tenants, so 69.8% utilization. Additionally, in conversation with the Foxborough Housing Authority, they shared their 2 senior elderly sites here in town. Centennial Court has 40 units, again, all 1 bed, and there's 37 spaces there. 32 of those are designated for residents, so 86.4% utilization for residents. And then Carl Annan, which is 64 units, all 1 bed, and 55 of those, so there's 82 total spaces and 55 are designated for residents, so 67.1% utilization there. So again, as you can see, a lot of those ratios, they don't come close to the 2.25 percent ratio mark, and the utilizations are quite low based on what actual residents are utilizing the spaces, which frees up the additional spaces for visitors, management staff, etc. So that's why we've never had a problem. The only real-world concern that we hear from property management is the fact that residents are trying to find reasonable accommodations to get a closer space. That tends to be the most frequent request.
Would you be designating spaces for residents here? Is that Question for you, Betsy, or?
Yeah, so under fair housing, we'll do reasonable accommodations, which is, a doctor's note to say they need to park close by. So that would be the assignment. Unless it becomes a real problem beyond that, we usually don't designate, this is this unit per space. I will say at our family sites, it tends to become more of an issue. So we have gone that way beyond reasonable accommodations. So we'd start out without it. We do have stickers typically at our sites so that we know whose car and they register them, so we don't have people abandoning vehicles or using the parking for, if they're not a resident, so.
And what we tried to do when we laid out the parking is designate the allocated number of parking spaces per building. So by that I mean building 1 has however many units, and we've tried to associate that many parking spaces as close to building 1 as possible. And as we go around the site, we've done the same with building 2 and building 3.
And of course, there would be handicap spaces for those who require that.
Yeah.
What's your typical, I don't know if ratio is the right word, but, typically in a unit, say, of 200 residents, how many handicap spaces do you typically think you might see? Or how many would you estimate? I shouldn't say typically. So.
Right. So I think that usually I know on units we have to do 5%. I'm trying to think if there's a similar.
Jesse can tell us.
Jesse, is there a similar state requirement for handicap spaces?
Yeah, that's
ratio?
based on number of parking spaces.
So, yeah, for the total that we have provided, 221, you'd be required to provide a minimum of 7. We have 12 that we are providing, so we're well in excess of the minimum. And we've spaced those out per building, as Jonathan had mentioned.
Perfect. Thank you.
And does it matter that the buildings are designated for 55 plus and disabled? Does that affect the amount of handicap spaces you would need to have?
No, they don't differentiate that in ADA calculations. They just do by total number of parking spots. But we were requested by everybody else on the team to provide in excess of that, which is why we have 12.
Got it. All right, thank you.
And we've provided those spaces as close to the building entrances as possible.
Kim, any questions?
How many spaces do you think will be used by staff who will be in the building every day or?
You've got a
working there?
staff of probably, for just phase 1, 7 full-time staff. It's a little bit of floating. Sometimes they're staggered, but particularly the resident service coordinator positions. So I would assume it's 7.
Okay, for 7. And that's for phase 1. How about for phase 2?
Phase 2, I think, goes up probably to 3 or 4 more. Again, the staff, as it evolves, will kind of become the staff for the whole site. But so you'll probably then start getting flex hours where you might have a service person who's a resident service coordinator for building 3 that's covering the site noon to 8 or something. So yeah, I think you'll probably have 4 more.
Okay, so you'll have, maybe not all exactly at the same time, but you'll have 7 to 11
Yeah.
for staff.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 10 or 11. Sorry.
10 or 11,
10
yes.
or 11.
Yeah. Well, 7, I think, was what we were saying for phase 1, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Lorraine?
No questions on parking.
Any questions from the public relative to traffic, parking issues? Paige and Scott, any questions? Anybody from TEC have any questions? Okay,
No questions.
thank you. So what I'd like to move on to now is, the plan has been revised, review of the revision, and discussion with some of the issues that have arisen so far, some of the questions that have arisen so far. So Jonathan, is that you or Jesse?
It'll be a
or-
combination of Jesse and myself.
Okay.
So I'll share the screen now. Can everybody see the screen? Yeah. Jesse, can you see the screen?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So again, for everybody's, and for the record, Jesse Johnson, West Sampson Engineers, for the civil engineering, landscape architectural, and traffic engineering consultants for the project. I did want to give everybody a brief overview. It was mentioned all the revised documents that you have received since the last time we had met And the purpose of that was to address all the comments and concerns we had received up to that point. So we had gotten feedback at the last public hearing. We had gotten formal comments by way of peer review letter from TEC, various staff members, and then even residents and abutter letters that we had received. We also had a public hearing with Conservation Commission to get some feedback from them. And then we also walked the site with everybody as it was mentioned. So we took all that in, boiled it down, and started to revise all the documents. And the revised plans and calcs and everything that you have in the packet are addressing everything to date. Most of the comments that we got that were in relation to the peer review comments and the staff comments generally were housekeeping edits, were correcting inconsistencies, providing more detail, doing a back check to make sure that overall design would not be impacted with some of the things that we were asked to look at, such as drainage. The layout that you see now, the rendering, is what you saw last time, because essentially the access layout in buildings didn't change as a result of all those comments that we addressed. We essentially just enhanced the plans, modified the calculations to just make everybody comfortable that we have done our due diligence and done all the homework in the background that basically fed this design and made it look the way it does. A couple of the things that may be worth noting, the drainage infrastructure was taken to the next level of design to make sure that it would handle the storms that we're anticipating, that the main trunk lines were sized appropriately. That's something we don't typically do until later on, but we did it now just to make sure there wouldn't be any conflicts with the other infrastructure designed. We also had a request from the Water District to replace another section of the water line along Walnut Street, given the age of that existing water line. And we took that opportunity and did that between the two entrance points, so we showed modification for that. And then we also heard from Conservation to try to improve, if we could, the buffer and the limit of work adjacent to that isolated wetland that you see in the lower corner of the site, which is in the upper area of our project. So we created essentially a 10-foot no disturb buffer, and then we tried to increase up to the 25-foot no disturb area that they had requested. And essentially what we achieved with that limit of work improvement was roughly only a 6% disturbance of that area, the 25-foot area, all the way around that wetland. So we thought, given that it's only 6% and we're doing a 10-foot no disturb, we felt that was a good improvement from the last time you saw it. So that was essentially addressing everything that we had heard. And then we did see a response letter back from TEC acknowledging all of our comments, and I won't speak for them, but it seems like they were good with everything as we have provided to them. Another thing that we wanted to do, if you can go to the next slide, Jonathan, is we heard some comments again and some concerns about if there was anything else we could do with the layout, with the buildings, with creating a better buffer potentially to our abutters, to the page on the southeast side of the page there, and wondering if there was any way that we could change the layout, basically. And what you're looking at here now is what the layout was for the original RFP. And we wanted to show you this because it gives you a good idea of where we started and how much work we've done over the last year to modify the site, considering all the restrictions, considering the buffers, and also it gives you an idea of what those original footprints looked like for the 4-story buildings. So building 1 and building 2, closer to Route 140, those were footprints at 4 stories when we did an initial pass. You still need that third building. So we showed you the block that's existing in white, which was the original 3-story building there. And then we're showing you that orange overlay where the 3-story building is now for building 3 and the size of it. And that gives you a good indication of how we adjusted the building to increase the buffer as much as we could to those abutters. But what we also learned on this layout, because you can see that it's drastically different, in my opinion, from the one that we have now before you, is that we had to change our access point on Walnut Street. We have an abutter across the street that we had to be a little more sensitive to, obviously, because we had an emergency access pointed right at their house. And we basically moved the driveway connection points further down Walnut Street, if you will, towards Route 40. And that allowed us to kind of open up the site a little bit more and get away from the wetlands a little bit better as requested. And it also allowed us to get rid of that, what you see as kind of an area of disturbance and an area of development in the corner where we had it kind of squared off by building 3. We were able to open that for up as well, make that more compact and linear site design that you have before you. If you shift to the next one, Jonathan, talk about the grading. So now you can kind of get an idea, and that gives you a good view and contrast of where we made those improvements to the buffer. One of the things I think is worth noting, and I didn't do a good job articulating this well before, is it's not just the building footprint for 3, that you've got to take all the parking with you. So that's a 59-unit building, and with the visitor, that's 63 spaces. So essentially all the parking that you have in front of the building and all the parking on the side, that's the 63 spots that Jonathan had mentioned. We were trying to get everything consolidated and close to each of the buildings and aligned per the units. You have to move that with it. So the building might be able to fit, let's say, behind building 1 or 2, but you wouldn't have any parking associated with it, or you wouldn't have any parking in any type of proximity to it. You'd have to leave the parking way over where it is. So that was a real big consideration that really pointed us to having only the ability to put that 3rd building in that area. Now, could we shift the building around a little bit and create maybe another 10 or 15 feet of space, moving it away from that area? We probably could, but it would really make our ADA access challenging. It would further increase our earthwork, and frankly, it wouldn't change your ability to see the building at all. So that's when we decided, well, let's take a different approach. Let's look at trying to hide the site itself, not just that 3rd building, but the site in particular, and try to improve the screening as much as we can, which I think we all observed during our site walk. There isn't much understory, so what can we do to improve that? And then I'll hand that over to Jonathan to talk about what we did in that area.
Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, for the record, Jonathan Law, Weston Sampson, landscape architect. So the plan, again, as Jesse mentioned, is similar to what you saw last time, with the exception of the area highlighted by the dashed hatch line there. When we did the site walk and spoke with a lot of the butters, they were concerned, again, about the visual impact of building 3 from their properties. We explained, as you can see, and as we explained at previous meetings, that we have along this edge an evergreen buffer that will provide a visual barrier to building 3. But then we also spoke about placing within this existing woodland that is to remain. Again, disturbance within that zone is limited as much as possible. But within that existing woodland, we agreed that we would plant up to 25 new evergreen trees similar to the ones that are proposed on the site. So they would be placed naturally. I think that if the abutters are there at the time when we're on site to install these trees, locations are, could be determined by them or at least assisted by them. These trees would go in during phase 1. So by the time building 3 goes in a few years, these trees would have 10 maybe feet of growth on top of the installed height, which I think we're proposing to be 15 feet. So we think that along with the initial buffer by the roadway and then this additional planting within the woodland will really help to screen building 3. As Jesse mentioned, when we looked at the grading here, we really tried to sort of hide this building as much as we can. And as you recall from the site visit that we went on, building 3 is actually 4 feet lower than the existing grade right now. So from the abutter's property, they would probably only see the top of the window ledge on the first floor anyway. So, and then if we look at the section, again, the section is the same, but as you can see in this location here, we've added the second piece of screening from the abutters closer to the property line. So again, those exact locations can be determined in the field with assistance from the neighbors, but that's another thing that we're prepared to offer here. And then I'll just go back a couple of slides just to show, as Jesse mentioned, we've really made a concerted effort here to place building 3, in fact, place all buildings in context of the site, but also being cognizant of the neighbors that have been there for a long time. And it was mentioned at the last meeting, well, can we just shift building 3 around? If I just bring this in here, this is basically a footprint of building 3 and some of the parking associated with that. As you can see, we're restricted by this wetland here. We need to have this access road for fire and emergency egress around the perimeter of the site. So if I just take this building and start shifting it around the site, if we keep the road, which we need to, and we have to have parking, that building could only be located in that position here. So as you can see, that really destroys the interior landscape of the site and the area that the tenants can actually use. If I start to move the building, this way a little bit, again, this roadway would have to get too close to the wetland, which we know we're trying to maintain that 25-foot buffer. And if we can't really move it any further to the east, because then it gets too close to building number 2. So we really have made a concerted effort to locate building 3 and the other 2 buildings, within this site, again, taking into consideration, the abutters to the property. If we go any further to the east towards 140, we're getting too close, again, to the property line. We can't be grading or doing any work beyond our property line, because that's with Mass DOT land. And again, parking associated with each building kind of determined where these buildings fell on the site. And as you can see from the previous RFP response, it's changed significantly. So it's not like we came up with a design and put our head in the sand and said this is the way it should be. We've really made a concerted effort into trying to locate the buildings and the interior of the site as best as we can within the footprint of the site that we have. And with that,
And as we discussed last week, adding a 4th floor would not be appropriate because of some of the funding reasons.
Right. You would be adding units into those buildings. And so even when we had the 4-story building in buildings 1 and building 2, it was the same number of units. So we can't change the unit mix, really, so.
And did you mention that the trees will be planted during phase 1?
yes,
Okay. So by the time phase 3 starts, they'll have some substantial growth? you
Yes.
mentioned? Okay.
correct.
I think you said 25?
Yeah.
25.
That
In
an
that-
estimate, or do you think
In
you
that
can?
hatched area, because that would be the new area.
Right.
Because the ones near building 3 would be problematic, because that's when the construction will be going on. So these could be planted and let them start growing.
I mean, that's the estimate. If it fluctuated either way by 5 or something like that, I don't think that would be a problem. But again, we seek assistance from the abutters out there to place these trees, in a way that, only serves the community, screening from them, but also screening the neighborhood, the neighbors from the site itself.
And they're pretty
And you're-
wide too, right?
Yep.
In that area, you're contemplating the same type of evergreen as you would on the perimeter?
It may be different because of solar orientation and existing woodland and shade and things like that, but it would be an evergreen variety, yes, and fast growing also.
Kim, any questions?
I'm trying to find it, it's in here somewhere. You had given us, way back when, a illustration of what it would look like from North High Street with respect to some of the screening arborvitae. Does that change given the potential of...
It does change, actually. It becomes better because, as you may recall from the site walk, the abutters' properties are higher up than the site itself. So we're proposing that second row of evergreen screening, which will be placed at a higher elevation. So, in fact, that view that you saw would be actually enhanced because the trees would be planted at a higher elevation and therefore be higher up at day 1.
Okay, great. So I'm looking at the picture that says post-construction completion of Phase 2 for Building 3 in the winter. So it looks like what we're seeing is, you're seeing the roof line and you're seeing some windows. Oh, yeah, if you have that, that would be great.
We don't have that one
Yeah,
from
we don't,
last
I
time.
don't
Okay.
have that one from last time. I'm just trying to look at the grades here. So if you look at the grades along the property line here, we're at 260, 261. So the original plant evergreen trees are around this driveway area, so it's like 254, 255, 256. So if we go to 260 and 261 against the wall here, you know, we're already minimum 4 feet higher when those plants are installed, so the elevation is higher. So like I said, on that elevation there you see,
Yep.
those trees will be 4 feet taller at day one on installation.
Okay, and those would be going in at phase one?
Yes, yes,
And they're going to be evergreens?
yes.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for finding that, Barney. I have it somewhere.
Go ahead, Lorraine.
So on the drawing that showed the trees along the parking, just trying to count them up, they looked like 25 of those circles covered most of that area where those abutters are. So are you saying that that same level of density would be
Well, I think
happening when they're planted up closer to the property lines?
it would provide a similar amount of screening. I don't think we would propose in the existing woodland for them to form a straight line. We want it to be more natural in the environment. So obviously that's a wooded area. So we would place these kind of staggered, some closer to another one and some a little bit further away. Would they provide screening once they're fully grown? Yes. But would they be that tight? Probably not. But, you know, they would definitely help to screen views into the site as you look at the green wall, if we call it, closer to the roadway.
Thank you.
Paige, do you have any questions?
No, I was just trying to find that picture that Kim was talking about.
You want me to give it to you?
No,
Okay.
no, I just seen it, I knew Diana probably had it on the website, but alas, our Wi-Fi is not that quick. No, I actually, it's a challenge, because I totally understand the concerns of the abutters. But, you know, we see this a lot on the planning board side of things. I mean, the problem is that, this sounds, people get used to the way the situations are, and when you don't control the land near you, when there's change, it's very concerning, and we hear it all the time, and I get it. So I think it sounds to me like the team is doing pretty much what they can within the confines of, 200 apartments to deliver that. And, I think using the screening, I think the neighbor is actually helping to locate where those clusters would go to give them the most screening. But the bottom line is, when we all buy our homes or build our homes, we aren't guaranteed to look at adjacent properties looking the same way forever. So that's the hard thing in your seat is, and that's what we deal with on the planning board is, well, that land's always been vacant, or, my kids play in that woods, or this and that. And it's like, well, you've had the quiet enjoyment of that property, but unfortunately you don't control it. So it's a tough thing, but I feel like with the extra screening, it will go a long way. And it is, I know it's a challenge to have change in the neighborhood.
Scott, any questions? Any questions from TEC or any comments to what you've heard so far from TEC?
Still nothing on our end. Thank you.
Okay. Greg, any questions more?
No questions, but I do like the idea of the second row of screening. And I particularly like the idea of having the neighbors involved in locating that. I think that's going to be a very important factor, so I'm glad to hear that.
Any public questions? Yes. Natalie, could you go to the...
Natalie Prosser, 58 North High Street. You were saying the additional buffering, which I like, is a good idea. But you were saying something about along the wall. There are some really tall, mature trees right there where in the summer, there's a lot of leaves on the top. I know it's not all the way down, but those do help with the height. So if we can keep those trees that are closer to the wall, I just didn't want you to say you were going to put everything right up to the wall.
No,
Does
no,
that
no.
make sense?
No, yeah, and if that was how that came across, I apologize, but we would not be taking any trees down to put in new trees.
Okay,
We would, within that existing woodland, all trees would remain, except if they're diseased or dying, then
Right.
we'd take them
Right.
down.
Okay.
And then, like I said, we'd go out there with the landscape contractor and whoever else wants to be there, and we would place trees where it makes sense in terms of root growth of existing trees, and then the best possible location for screening from your property and other properties
Okay.
along adjacent to the site.
okay. Thank you. I just wanted it known. My feeling anyways, not to take those down, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ed Galley, 56 North High Street. Just want to mention, you guys are talking about turning that building 3 and making the other buildings bigger. I'm just trying to be a little bit more clear of what I was seeing there. So you showed a different
Yeah.
footprint.
I think what Jesse was trying to illustrate was that the process that we've gone through from the time we submitted our request for proposal response to the Housing Authority, and it was accepted into where it is now, and how the original building you see there in the white, that's what we had initially proposed, and as you can see, the parking and the building were much closer to the neighborhood, and so we've shifted it since then. And then what I think Jonathan then tried to show was, and then even if you take the footprint of the building, the parking has to go with it, because you can't have the building without the parking, because people need to
That's an
park.
existing footprint right now?
No,
The
white.
That's a new footprint.
The dashed is the new
Dashed.
footprint. The white is the design that we submitted as part of the RFP response.
So you've moved this up?
So we've moved
Yes.
it further away and angled it further away from the properties along North High, yes.
So from the center of the road, like I'm gonna go by my property because I measured it, to your flag was about 100 feet, and then you take it away 10 feet for the road and 15 feet for the vegetation that you want to put in. So that leaves us with about 75 feet at that time, so you're gonna say that's gonna make it more? I'm just trying to understand what you're...
I'm not following. Can you just repeat that question?
So in other words, you had from the center of the road, when we looked at,
Yeah.
did the walkthrough, you had the flag, and when I measured it from where my property is, it was approximately 100 feet. And then you come back 10 feet, which is the end of the road.
Yep.
Then you said it's about 15 feet for the vegetation that you had to put in.
Yeah, 15 feet plus or minus for the grading for the vegetation, yes.
So that left a 75-foot buffer in
Yeah.
the middle of my property to that flag.
Yeah.
So that changes that now and makes more...
No, that is, that dashed line, so if I go to this plan, that is that's the design.
So that's the building we've been looking at the whole time?
Yes.
So you're saying you've already changed it to that?
Yeah, so that's just that building as we saw on the site, as staked out on the site, is the dashed line. And that's just superimposed over the initial design that we started with. So what we're trying to show on this slide is the progression that we've made to go from this design that you see here to the one that we're proposing now, if that makes sense.
So it's no different than what we've been looking at?
So one other,
Since the last...
sure.
No, it's
Yeah.
this,
So
no,
everything's exactly the same? I was
One-
under the impression when you're showing that you've made another adjustment since we all talked.
no, that was just saying the amount of adjustment we've made to get to this point.
Okay, from a while back.
Yes.
So, and the
Okay.
other component, just to add a little bit, buildings 1 and 2, and that screen are the three-story buildings. If you go to the next screen, there was a request to evaluate if we made the 2 buildings closer to 140, 4 stories, how much does that shrink the footprint and give you more room?
Right.
So that is a 4-story footprint for those 2 buildings. And then showing, really, that doesn't free up more space to manipulate the 3rd building on the site. There was a request to see if we went back to 4 stories, how much space we'd pick up.
You're saying it doesn't make any
It
difference?
doesn't, because if you saw when he moved it around, it doesn't really change the configuration.
Yeah, again, if I move this building here with the associated parking, we have to maintain that road, and the road is as close as it can get to the wetland. So if I start moving this building 3 around, you can see that, sure, we can move it over, but at the detriment to the entire site, basically, to the interior of the site.
Well, in the grades too.
And grading is also an issue, yes.
I mean, it's kind of concerning because it's like you're comparing the amenities that you're getting for these buildings to the amenities that we're going to lose. I mean, it's like, I'm not trying to be selfish, but it's my property is going to have this building dead center in front of it. And whether I lose property value, I don't know what's going to happen. You know, and it's just disturbing. I mean, we've sent you guys a lot of letters and stuff, and I appreciate everything you're going to do, but it's, that building 3 is just, it's a game changer on our property.
Like I said, you know, we're screening it as much as we can. We'd love to have you out on site when the screening goes in to, you know, help assist where you think the best views are, you know, restricted from looking at building 3. But I think ultimately, I understand, you know, what you're saying, but I think ultimately in 5-10 years, you're not even going to see building 3. You
Well,
really
we will. We'll see the roof.
I don't think
And,
you will.
I mean, we were told initially when we started this, we weren't going to see any roof lines. And, you know, as we've gone into it, now it's like, of course you're going to see roof lines, so it's...
No, so 49 feet is the ridge line of the roof, where, let's say, 6 feet higher where these trees are going to go in, if we place them closer to the property line, so that the stone wall, those trees at maturity, 45 to 60 feet tall, you won't see that building.
Okay.
You won't.
Well, if we don't, we appreciate it, you know. I appreciate anything you're trying to do. It's,
Thank you.
Any other questions here?
No questions.
Okay. Anything else from the public? Okay, Frank, anything else you want to cover?
Nope, I think we've hit everything.
Okay. See, I told my wife I might be home at 6:30, but I don't know. We should go out someplace.
Let's not count our chickens before we hatch. We're not done. I said, don't count our chickens before we're hatched. We're not done yet here.
No, we might be done tonight, but I've got nothing else that I had intended to discuss tonight. So unless there are any other questions.
I had a question about the
Go ahead.
location of the dog park.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And you also had a question, I think, about the pickleball courts.
yeah, well, I understand there was a concern raised about the pickleball court noise issue, but just regarding the location of the dog park or existence of a dog park there, you know, historically, that was a big issue in the past on Mill Street, proximity of the neighbors, huge complaints, big lawsuit against the town. I wonder if there's a way to either not have a dog park, an enclosed one, you know, like keep everybody on leash in this area, which I think is the safest thing, or if the intent is to have a fenced-in area, to relocate it to someplace where there's a barrier to prevent, you know, to screen that noise.
So the dog park is currently proposed to be here.
Yep.
It will be fenced in. As you can see, there's a lot of proposed new trees to be located in this vicinity. And then again, we have this existing woodland here that again will be augmented with evergreen trees along the driveway. So could there be some noise from a dog? I don't have a dog, so I couldn't tell you that. But I think we're doing, you know, again, the best we can to locate this dog park as far away from the abutters as we possibly can. You know, there's no space on this side of the driveway to locate that. Could we flip it with where the putting green is here? Yeah, we can certainly look at that. And again, some of the end of the building here will help with that
That would be-
transmission of noise.
That
So
would
we
be
can
great
certainly look at
if you could
that.
do that, yeah.
And then the pickleball court, the closest house to this pickleball court is, I think, 250 plus feet. And again, the the Wellesley location that's been in the news lately. I know that place very well. The pickleball courts in that location where people are complaining about noise. If the court is here, the houses are basically right where these buildings are here. And there's no buffer. There's a sidewalk, pickleball court, and then the housing. So, of course, they're going to get lots of noise. So I think to compare that to this location is a little disingenuous because they're not the same.
Okay.
And you'll have that surrounded by a fence with,
Pickleball will have a fence, and if we can move it a little bit further up and again plant some trees on this side of it, we'll certainly do that as well.
Yeah. I
Can
think the idea of moving the dog park, that would be ideal.
yeah,
Yeah.
to where the putting green is makes sense.
Yeah, I like that idea. I like that idea as well. Could you just repeat again, how far away is the pickleball court from the closest?
I think the closest house is the one on Walnut, and I think it's around 250 feet.
Thank you.
And I can follow up with an exact number if you want.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions? No. Okay, I think what I'd like to do is, our next meeting is April 20th. Any last questions we have, any additional information, you may want to provide? We can, go through that, discuss that, and then close the public hearing, and we can deliberate at that point in time. And I think that would be consistent with your needs as far as the, the funding and tax issues.
Yes.
So that's my game plan for now. Okay. So we do have 3 other applications that we have to consider that night. I'm guessing it'll be around 7:45 before we get to this. Maybe we're lucky, it'll be 7:30, but I'm guessing around 7:45.
I don't want to be presumptuous, but
And don't,
the decision has a great amount of body in it that has to go in it regardless. Because of the issue with the funding and all that, I was wondering if we can get the decision started before the 20th, at least the meat of it, listing all the exhibits, all the things that were put in record, dates of meetings, attendees, things like that. So we get a head start on the decision so that we could have it, again, in time to get in line for the funding.
I think Judy indicated she would be ready to start, but we'll have to push her a little bit more, I'm sure.
Yes, because what is the plan for, if you do the 20th, then the next meeting would be May 18th, and Kim's not there.
Right.
So like, how does this play out?
Although, are you able to zoom in on the 18th in May?
That's going to be difficult,
Okay.
unfortunately.
I mean, technically, what we would do would be either approve or not approve April 20th, and then May would be to approve the written decision. And hopefully, although I can't obviously guarantee that, you would have the opportunity to see it beforehand, so if you had any questions, comments, what have you, you could funnel that on to us.
Yes,
But,
yes.
Would you ever vote today? And I haven't talked to anybody about this, but would you ever vote today and then start the decision and vote the decision on the 20th instead? It just feels like it's stretching out on
Yeah, the
somewhat
only-
unnecessarily.
the
and
reason I'm
losing Kim.
hesitant to do that is because of Judy. Because I don't know how quickly she can get started. Because if we close the public hearing today, that starts the clock as far as the 40 days.
40 days.
Yeah.
Right, but can you wait, like, just thinking this through, I did the math earlier, and so that May 20th would, or May 18th would bring you to 44 days, assuming we,
No, not from April 20th.
no, from today,
From today, yeah.
right? Yeah, so I mean, you have, so I guess it just feels like today is like a quick meeting, and, I mean, I'm dying to go home too, but it's just more like, it feels like the 20th is going to be packed again, and so it just feels like, is there a way to get this thing moving? Or are you waiting for more, or what, it just seems like we're dragging it out somewhat.
Well, we're not dragging it out. I do want to give us more time to think about it, to see if any final questions anybody has.
Okay.
So I don't think we're dragging it out.
That's wrong terminology, sorry, I'm just
Some
saying.
people may, though, but.
No, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that in such a, casting such an aspersion. It just feels like all the information's in, and so even like what you did last time where you had a vote, that might be sufficient, and then you move to writing the decision after, after that. I don't know.
No,
I'm out.
I-
It was just a suggestion because
Yeah.
it seemed like we are at a point where we're talking about the same stuff.
So would it be helpful, this may not be helpful, so I apologize if this is not helpful, but would it be helpful, given that we do have the information, as far as I understand, we have it thus far, just to not have an official vote, but just sort of see where we all are? Is that helpful, not helpful? I don't know if that could help move things, it wouldn't be official, and then that sort of helps Judy understand, where we are. Or not.
Insert another meeting just for that, before the May 18th. I'm
So-
sorry, before the April.
And again, she can start I'll write the decision. I've done it before, but there's going to be a meat of the decision, which is going to be the same, whether it's an approval or a disapproval, where you're describing what's been going on here. Now, if it's an approval, you want to do the conditions and explanation. If it's disapproval, you want to explain why. But there's going to be a good meat of it. I think Judy can get that done between now and the 20th.
I think he's a lot more optimistic about Judy than some others of
But-
us are.
Well, one of the issues I'm hearing here is getting it
I'm not trying to be
written.
critical of Judy, it's just that she's got so much on her plate that,
But maybe in this instance, we have Frank do the meat of it.
no.
You're not comfortable
no,
with that?
No, I'm
All
not going to, it's going to be on our side, not.
Yeah, okay.
There's no problem in taking a consensus, but what they are going to need is a formal vote, yes or no, so.
Right.
Yeah,
And-
but by
and
the
something
next
that Frank
meeting,
and I
if
have discussed
possible.
That, once we do a formal vote, what I would do is draft a letter that we did, approve it, subject, we still have to approve a written decision, but we have approved it, assuming that's the case. So.
But if Kim isn't there on May 18th, she can't, who would vote on the written decision?
It would have to be Kurt, Lorraine, and me,
Okay, so Kim would be out.
as far as the written decision goes.
Well, kind of as is there a difference between a vote to approve and a vote, can you have different votes to approve and then a different signature? Is that how it works?
Well, again, what they need on April 20th at the latest is a vote that we've approved the
No, I think
application.
what you're saying is the same three people that vote yes or no have to be the same three people who vote the decision.
I
That's
don't
the
think, I
question.
don't see why. I don't see why, as long as everybody's been in the meetings, I don't see why.
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know
When are you
either.
leaving on vacation?
The week before that, I leave the previous Friday, I believe.
That would be the 12th.
The 12th or the 19th?
I think I'm leaving on the 12th. I think it's that Thursday, Friday, so 11 or 12, and I don't remember which day.
And when are you coming back?
I've gone for 9 days.
So around the 21st, 22nd?
Yeah, something there, right. I can look at my phone. I don't remember dates, unfortunately.
We could,
We could have we probably need an extension, but we could have another meeting in May.
no, if you don't close it until the 20th.
Well,
might
if
be
we
able to
close it
make
the 20th, 40 days would be pretty much the end of the month.
Yeah,
So,
and we'd give you an extension if necessary.
I'm back on the 21st, Sunday, the 21st.
What day of the week is that?
Sunday. I'm back on Sunday, the 21st.
I'll be gone that following week.
Okay.
which is when?
The 20, what's the Monday of that week? Is that the,
29th's Memorial Day.
I'll be gone the week prior to Memorial Day, yeah.
That's
Okay,
the
but again,
22nd.
what we would do on April 20th, and I think all of us are available, although Lorraine
Yes.
will be zooming in, is to vote, and assuming whether we vote in favor or not. we would then be able to, you're leaving on the 21st, you said?
Yes. Whatever that
22nd.
Monday is.
Okay.
22nd.
22nd.
But Kurt isn't one of the voting members,
Right, at this point, right.
right?
Right.
So
Right, so if Kim, Lorraine, and I would be available to then approve the decision, you can get me whatever comments, you might have beforehand.
So you want a meeting after May 18th?
Yeah, maybe just some afternoon. If I close the public hearing tonight, what's 40 days from tonight, Diana?
You figured it was May 16th?
May 14th, maybe?
14th, 16th, something like that.
Because from today, it would be 44 days till May 18th from today.
14.
So,
But either way, Kim would not be available. 40 days from tonight, Kim is already gone. Right?
Yeah, I leave on the 12th, so that's at 40.
40 days from April 4th, Sunday, May 14th.
And you're already gone.
I'm gone.
Yeah.
and we'll provide an extension if necessary.
So I haven't been speaking with Judy, but do we need to talk with Judy to make sure she's got the time to do this?
Paige and I already did.
Okay.
I think she seemed to indicate that from the 20th she would.
Having 40 days.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I send her all the, the list of all the materials, the
Mhm.
meetings, all of that other stuff.
you fill it in?
I-
Or you,
I send it to her and she puts it in the
yeah, okay.
decision.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I did with the last one.
So one possibility would be we have our April 20th meeting, and then, unfortunately, I really cannot zoom in. I wish I could. It's just simply not going to work, given how everything is, it's not going to work. So this is a challenge, and I apologize for this, but possibly the week of the 22nd. I know Kurt's not here, but if the three of us could be here the week of the 22nd, is there any way we could do something then? Would that fit into what Judy has told you? And you've said that you would give us the extension for a few days?
We won't need it if you don't close it tonight. If you close it tonight, we'll give you the extension, because you'll need it.
Mm-hmm.
That's just an option, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Do like the Tuesday, the 23rd in the afternoon, same.
And I mean, I have to check with Christina when the room's available. I mean, it might be similar to today. But I don't know. I mean, it's after town meeting, after elections. I'm presuming things would slow down, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
And can't do it before, we can't do it before then, like
sorry?
May 9th?
Judy,
It's Judy.
Yeah, it's a time.
Okay.
And this shouldn't be as difficult as the last one, but. But.
I mean, how much time does Judy need after April 20th? Could you do it like the first week of May? Last week of April?
I'll be zooming in on the 20th, and I can zoom in on the 27th also,
27th of,
April,
April,
April.
or whatever day that week.
so let me ask this question. When we take a vote, we're going to have to close the public hearing, okay? That starts the clock running, okay? Let's forget about, will Judy be available or not? She better be, one way or another, and I'll draft whatever I have to draft. Are we ready to make a decision tonight?
Yes.
I am.
I am.
Okay. So what we would do then, we would close the public hearing and then deliberate, and then a motion to approve, which we'd vote on. And I'd follow that up with a motion to direct Judy to, draft a decision consistent with that vote. Again, I think we're going to need more time just to be safe. Is that?
Sounds good.
I agree.
Somebody want to make a motion to close the public hearing?
Well, are we closing the public hearing?
Yeah. That means no more, we can talk, but nothing from the public.
Okay.
That's something, again, that Paige and I discussed with Judy. That wasn't my
Okay.
initial thought, but that's
Okay.
what she suggested.
Okay.
Actually, she did more than suggest it. That's what she told us we needed to do.
Today?
No, not
Or
today.
not
No,
today.
when-
It's like,
whenever-
Well,
whenever
process-wise.
we're ready to vote.
Well, okay. Shooty.
Yeah, she's now running things.
I think she's on a plane someplace now.
Oh, she's stuck on Logan Express on the expressway.
Oh, okay.
Boy. Okay, I move that we close the public portion of the meeting,
Second,
Public portion of the hearing.
public portion of the hearing.
second,
Okay. Lorraine?
yes.
Kim?
Yes.
And Barney, yes. Okay. So what we need then would be a motion to approve the request for a comprehensive permit. Let me draft something. Question, or I guess for Mike and Betsy. So the hearing notice has talked about 200 units of rental housing for seniors, but technically it's 200 units of rental housing for disabled individuals and seniors. And that would be technically seniors age 55 and above, correct?
Yes.
Really shouldn't even say seniors. I probably should say individuals age
Yeah,
65 and above.
Would agree.
That did hurt my feelings.
Been a long time since seen age 55. All right, so the motion would be to grant a comprehensive permit to construct 200 units of rental housing for disabled individuals and individuals aged 55 years and above. That will be affordable at no more than 80% of area median income, in accordance with the revised Walnut Street Affordable Housing Comprehensive Permit Set that was received by this board on March 28, 2023. Okay, you want to make the, you want to?
Generally, we put it to the date of the plan, which is March 24th.
Okay.
You say last revised March 24th.
So let me withdraw that motion. All right, let's try again. Grant a comprehensive permit to construct 200 units of rental housing for disabled individuals and individuals aged 55 years and above. That will be affordable at no more than 80% of area median income, in accordance with the revised Walnut Street Affordable Housing Comprehensive Set dated March 24, 2023. Okay.
That sounds good to me. So moved.
Second.
Okay. Discussion. Who wants to start?
I will start. So I appreciate going into this, all of the thought that has gone into all of this, and I feel like a lot of that really, I was able to fully understand when we did the site walk, and I was very glad that a lot of the neighbors were there as well. Thank you for letting us park in your driveway. Thank you. And so a lot of it really, the site walk was imperative, as you know, as they always are. The first thing I want to say is I appreciate the two meetings with the neighbors that happened ahead of time. I think that is key before the public meeting opens. Tremendously helpful, I think. And I appreciate the changes going from 4 to 3 stories, from 250 units to 200 units, and then as we saw today, shifting building 3 so that it was a little bit further away from the residents on North High. I appreciate that. Also, the designing, I think it was the stormwater regs beyond the current regulations to what would be anticipated updated regulations. Really appreciate that forethought. I think, we don't understand exactly where climate change is going, but something like that could be very useful and helpful as we go on. Also the addition of the approximately 25 additional evergreens, for screening that are going to be placed with the help of the neighbors. I think that is great. So I think there's a lot, good here. I am also at the same time very sensitive to what the neighbors have been saying, and this is certainly going to change what it feels like in your backyard. So I can certainly understand that, but I think something that Paige said earlier really struck me, and that is, Paige, I don't want to paraphrase and do this.
Your quiet enjoyment of your adjacent property, that type of thing? Yeah.
Yes, so that has certainly been, that was what I kept uppermost in my mind as we were doing this, the site walk. But change happens. And you said it very, very well, Paige. So I am leaning towards yes on this, but I am obviously looking forward to hearing what my colleagues have to say as well before I have a final answer.
3?
So I agree with everything Kim said. I think, it was really important to do the site walk, and I feel like every concern that has been raised has really been explained very clearly as to why decisions were made. I think that was, a big concern. Is there any way to improve this and it's clear to me that every step was taken to try and consider that and consider the impact on the neighbors. So, I appreciate your explaining that very clearly. That was really helpful for me. I think also the screening, the additional screening really will make a huge difference for them, and, involving them in that decision is fantastic. Thank you for addressing my concern about the dog park. I appreciate that. And, but I think in general, all of the concerns have been addressed, and as best as can be, trying to make sure that both parties get maximum benefit from this. So I think the project is really fantastic for Foxborough, and thank you for all of your work and explanation. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Kurt?
Yeah, just to echo what my colleagues are saying here, I appreciate the transparency that you've all put forth here as to why the units are located where they are and the financial constraints and these kinds of things. It's been helpful for me. I appreciate the design of the buildings. They seem to be stylish and in keeping in context with the town. I really appreciate the extra screening and the interaction with the neighbors. That's lacking a lot in some of these projects, and it's not helpful, and it doesn't foster a good working environment with the neighbors. I understand their position, but I appreciate everything that you've done to address those concerns and work with them. So I'm very encouraged by hearing all that.
So I'm not going to hit anything other than on these particular comments. I agree with them, 100%. One thing that I do want to reflect is that at the very, very first meeting, we reserved our right to raise the so-called safe harbor defense, the fact that the town is over 10% as far as its affordable units. And we could utilize that as a defense to deny this project. My own position is, and I've enunciated this in another matter, that I don't believe there's a valid and viable reason for us to deny a project, and particularly this project, just because the town is over the 10% threshold. I can't think of a greater testament to the fact that there's a regional need for affordable housing and a need within the town of Foxborough for affordable housing, and the fact that there are plus or minus 2,000 people on the Housing Authority's waiting list, of which 170 of them are Foxborough residents. So I will not, as long as I'm the chairman of this board, utilize that as a reason to deny this project and any project that has the viability of this. This is a benefit to the town of Foxborough. I think it's going to be a project that all of us will ultimately be happy with. I realize the concerns of the neighborhood. I'm appreciative of the efforts that have been made by Weston and Sampson to address those concerns. And I would hope that within a short period of time, within a short number of years, the fact that there is a building within a relatively short distance of your respective homes will not be detrimental to you. So I am in favor of this project, and I am in favor of voting in favor of this project. Anything further?
No.
No. So let me do a roll call, and we're not done after this.
Okay.
Kim?
Yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
And Barney, yes. The one thing that we have not discussed as a group are the requested waivers. Scott and I met with Frank and Jesse and Bill Buckley recently to go over that list. And I think we came to an agreement that with one exception, we're satisfied with what was being requested. That one exception was a blanket, what do I do with it? A blanket request that anything that we haven't covered here in the way of town bylaws would be waived. And as you recall, in the last matter, we refused to agree to that. And I told Frank that we would not agree to that here. Other than that, all of the waivers are consistent with what this project calls for. So unless anybody has any specific questions with respect to any of them, which we can address.
No.
And what I would like would be a motion to approve the requested waivers that were submitted to us on April 4, 2023.
With the exception,
That's not in there.
oh, that one's not in there. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, great. Okay, so moved.
Second,
Okay, Lorraine,
yes.
Kim,
Yes.
and Barney, yes. And what I'll do now is work with our consultant to draft an opinion, a decision rather. We probably will need an extension, but I'll,
Do we,
probably want to do it tonight.
that's fine. Do we need to continue this to the 20th, you think, now?
There's no reason to.
Right?
Well,
But we have to continue it
we
to a
have to
date
continue it.
certain.
But she won't have anything by the 20th.
Right.
But we do have to continue it. Why don't we do this? Let me have a motion to direct our 40B consultant to draft an opinion consistent with tonight's votes.
Decision.
Decision,
Decision that's consistent with tonight's votes.
So moved.
second,
Okay, Lorraine,
yes.
Kim,
Yes.
and me, yes. And I think what we can do, let's continue again, the public hearing is closed.
Deliberation.
Did you want to continue it to the 20th, and I alone will just show up just for the discussion of extending the period? So you have an opportunity to decide what a good date is for the three of you?
Again, we said 40 days from tonight is when?
May 14th.
May 14th?
What she said.
But you also have the issue on the 18th with Kim.
Yeah.
Would you want to try to have a meeting the week before Kim goes away?
To be going away the 12th, right?
I leave on the 12th.
So that is a week of town meeting,
Town
Yeah.
meeting, yeah.
so you know, Monday every town meeting.
Monday the 2nd is town elections, and Monday the 9th is town meeting, so we can't have meetings those days. Bob Carler won't let you.
But we could shoot for, like you say, a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, like an afternoon, late afternoon type thing that works.
I mean, Thursday the 5th, that's the first Monday of the month, so there might not be anything.
Yeah.
Frank, what-
Thursday, the 4th, right?
Again, we've got 40 days from
Thursday
tonight
the 4th, sorry.
when we're supposed to have a,
This is a weird calendar. It doesn't start with Sunday. It starts
what we
with-
really have is 54 days from tonight to file a written decision with the town clerk. But Judy is insistent on 40 days. Once we close the public hearing, we're required to render a decision within 40 days, and then within 14 days thereafter, file the written decision with the town clerk.
But you've already made the
We've
decision,
already made the decision.
so you have 14 days.
So no, Judy looks at it as 40 days. Why don't we do this, if you don't mind? Why don't we extend to some date after Kim gets back, the date on which we have to vote upon the written decision?
Vote, okay.
But we'll try for sooner if possible, depending on Judy's availability and where the draft
Well,
lives.
again, we're gonna have to pick a date to extend it until, and I'd rather leave it at that particular date, someday after, between the time Kim returns and the end of May.
Right, but I understand, but would we also be trying to get a meeting prior to Kim going away, just in case we can
We
wrap it up
can't,
prior
because
to?
you have to continue this hearing to a date certain.
There's no hearing.
There's no
The
hearing,
hearing's
we
closed,
closed it,
so we
yeah.
can
Yeah, but you
do,
have to continue it.
do you?
Oh, what we have to do is continue the
The hearing
date
is-
on which we have to file a written decision with the town clerk. So what I would like to do is to figure out a date in May when Kim would be available to do that.
Sure.
I mean, if you pick an afternoon now, we could check, I mean, Christina's here, we could try to get this meeting room, we could nail this down today if you wanted to try.
You want to check with her?
Sure.
Okay.
What days, I mean, it'd be best if I gave a few options, but
Up to you.
I'd assume we want to go as close to May 12th as possible to give Judy the most amount of time.
So
So
could-
sometime that week of,
So but we cannot do it on the 8th, Monday, the 8th, because that's town.
cannot do it on the 8th.
Okay, so could we say possibly 9 or 10?
Okay, in like the late afternoon-ish? Is that what works for everybody? May 9th or May 10th in the afternoon?
And if that doesn't work, could we say the previous Thursday, May 4?
Yeah, let me write some down now that so 5/4. And then 5, what did we say, 5?
5/9?
9.
Or
Or
5/10?
10?
5/10, okay. let
9
me-
or 10 would be great. It gives her an extra few days.
Well, on the 10th, I turn into Cinderella at 5 because I have a hair appointment, and if you're a woman, you do not mess with the hair.
No, you do
So
not.
I will not be missing that. I can zoom in from the chair.
You know what she's talking about, right, Scott?
Let me go check.
Totally.
I completely understand.
Hey,
I do have a feeling, Frank. You just heard it.
That's twice tonight now, right?
Oh, just getting hurt all over.
As long as I can teach my Zumba class on the 10th, we're okay.
What time is that?
Six.
Close the public hearing 180 days before it has rendered a decision.
There's a lot of stuff.
Matter not later than 40 days after the close
And you're still available then?
time period for giving the public hearing a decision may be extended. A written copy of the board's decisions on the cloud.
So what we would do, Frank, would be to pick a date on which you've agreed to extend the time within which a decision must be filed with the town clerk. That's what we'd be looking for.
that's fine.
Because that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, because technically, we should be doing it within 14 days of tonight.
14 days.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we'll extend to the end of May, just to give ourselves wiggle room. I think it could be a good idea if we can get, a good of idea of where we think we're going to go with this.
Yeah. And what I'll do is I'll draft a letter for you that, Diana can send it to you and to Betsy. Is that what you want? Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so all of those dates, May 9th, 10th, and 4th are all available. On the 9th, the only constraint is you'd have to be out by 6 PM for selectmen that night. Select board, sorry, but the 10th and the 4th, but all of them are wide open in the late afternoon.
Whatever's convenient for people, I'm available.
I'm available.
9th?
Okay.
9th.
Town meeting's what, the 8th?
The 8th.
Monday.
Yep.
Barney, you should know that. Second Monday in May.
And there'll probably be a long one.
Don't jinx us.
I already did by all the zoning articles.
So would you rather do it on Wednesday instead of Tuesday?
I'll do it either day. It doesn't matter to me.
For the 4th?
No, the 9th or the 10th, right? Is that what you're looking at?
Well, 4th, the Thursday
Do the
before.
4th also.
Do we want to give Judy a few extra days? I'm fine with the 4th.
I'd rather not do it that week because I don't think it's going to give Judy enough time.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, the answer to your question is yes. I'd rather give it the extra week. So either the 9th or 10th is good for me.
I prefer the 9th.
Okay.
I'd rather do
great.
the 9th.
Kurt, you okay?
Yes.
All right. Afternoon, what time, Diana?
Same as today, 4:30.
Okay.
So the
30
ninth,
to 6, you got
So-
an hour and a half, would that be enough?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I'll draft something, Frank, I'll send it to you, tomorrow, that we've agreed to extend to, May 9th, the period in which the written decision must be filed with the town clerk.
Well, wouldn't you want it, after that, because I can't file it with the clerk on the 9th. Well, I mean, I guess I could.
yeah, and just in
Technically,
case you
they're
have
open till 7.
revisions,
Yeah.
you guys want
Do
to
you
come
want to do it
back.
till that Friday,
Yeah, why don't you do
Okay.
it to that Friday?
on May
Okay.
12th?
Okay.
Let's do it that Friday's fine. So May 9th, I wasn't sure, or the 10th.
Yeah.
4:30.
May 9th.
We'll extend to the 12th, and we'll meet on the 9th.
Meet on the 9th at 4:30.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
So you're going to continue the public hearing.
Nope, public hearing's done.
Public hearing.
What's that?
Public hearing is done.
closed.
So,
No, the public hearing is closed.
closed, we're done.
The hearing is still going
The
on,
meeting is still going on.
so you have to continue it.
To May
the
9th
9th.
at
Yep.
4:30.
And could we have a date by which we'd like to have the decision in hand to review?
I'd like to have
We
it,
would love that.
We still have some conditions, right, to discuss. Are we going to discuss this on the 20th? Discuss conditions on the 20th, just so we can give Judy a little bit more time to put those in before the 9th? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So the 20th, we'll discuss conditions.
Mhm. Okay, so we're going to continue,
Deliberations.
I guess we're continuing the hearing, you're right, public hearing is closed. Continue the hearing to April 20th. And probably we'll do that night, we'll continue it then to May 9th. And then what I would do is, I said, I'll draft something, Frank, that you and I can sign, extending the time frame for filing.
To the 12th?
Yep. And hopefully that'll give us enough, hopefully we won't have to extend it again, but,
If necessary.
yeah. So, a motion to continue the hearing till April 20?
So moved.
Lorraine?
Second,
Lorraine?
yes.
Kim?
Yes.
And Barney, yes.
And for the 20th, I'll just show up, with either Betsy and or Mike. I'll have Weston and Sampson, one of them will get the short straw and ask them to zoom in, just in case you have any questions for them.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
And we'll
Yes.
primarily discuss conditions. Okay? All right, thank you.
Okay, great.
And for those who didn't answer my question, Sam and Dave were an R&B group in the 60s and 70s. Lorraine
I
should
knew
remember
that, I knew that. I wasn't going to admit it, though.
Thank you. Yes?
Thank you.
In the event that everything goes through, should we supply our contact information with either you guys or you guys for the buffer? Would you want to do that now, or would you?
That's fine, if you want to do that now, we can take down information or...
I mean, it's
No,
for,
the
I
third
mean,
one is
Well, I gave you
the
my wife.
billboard thing. You should have gotten that one.
Say, I don't have my card on me right
Opening
now.
completed last time.
No, Mike, I
card?
do.
Okay.
That. Barney,
So
we
you
need a
should-
motion to adjourn
Email us the,
during the whole meeting.
Yeah,
and then that.
unless we got something else. Well,
We're supposed to adjourn by 6, so we got 2 minutes.
yeah, and then I want to talk to people for a couple seconds. So motion to adjourn?
I do, I think I
I
should.
motion we adjourn.
Second,
Lorraine?
yes.
Kim?
Yes.
No, you go to 6.
Yes. And Barney, yes.
Thank you.
My grocery